So can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
So it's Paul Conlon, I'm 63 years of age, coming up in Feb. So that's young these days. I've got 30 years of video production capacity in front of me. So I've been in the film production business since I was a young fellow in my 20s, back in the middle 80s, and enjoyed 30 years going from learning about the subject up to producing corporate films for companies. I took a short break from filming to do some other stuff back in the 2000s, and was approached by Kingfisher's B&Q back in 2017 to produce a couple of films for them in the Northwest, and decided that it would be great to have an aerial shot of one of their buildings, one of their sites. So a friend of mine with a drone came along, and I really hadn't experienced the flexibility and the freedom of putting a sensor in the sky and moving it around before. And we shot this drone footage, and it changed the feel of the film completely. I was absolutely blown away by the look and feel of aerial photography and video. So it was a light bulb moment, you might call it. And I decided at that moment that I would qualify to be a commercial drone pilot. This is as much about an emotional decision as it's not about taking a job. This is about going back into a business that I had spent 25 plus years involved in, and coming back to it in my mature years, and finding how things have changed. So I've got excited about doing it because of information like what PricewaterhouseCoopers had done.
When you think of drones, you might think of private use, big budget films, broadcast news, or suspicious flights raising fears of terror attacks. But PricewaterhouseCoopers made a study predicting that the UK's drone industry will make 42 billion, 1.89% of the UK's GDP by 2030. The study also predicts that 628,000 jobs will be created by 2030. Now, you might think that these figures are a bit excessive, and you might be right. This study was made by 4 researchers. 3 out of the 4 are professionals of the drone industry. However, it's undeniable that drones are used more and more for commercial purposes, for instance, in video advertising.
I learned that the Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA, required you to get a PFCO, a Permission for Commercial Operations, which allowed you then commercially to go and shoot footage on behalf of clients or for other film companies, either photography or video, and that sounded fantastic. So I started a journey and was granted a PFCO in the middle of last year, in 2019. When I decided to begin a brand new business, I needed to reacquaint myself with modern business thinking, and I contacted Boost Lancashire here in Preston and applied to go on some training courses, which were fantastic. So business planning, understanding social media, marketing. It's just not enough to be able to, one, be a filming professional for over 30 years, and have just acquired a license to fly a drone. I needed to understand how I could use these skills and make a business run. So I spent a good year going on training courses, getting a business plan prepared, looking at maybe the funding aspect of it, worked out what it might cost to invest. That was scary, and then went ahead and purchased said drone equipment. So we associate drones mainly with rotary units, but fixed-wing drones are a whole different ballgame, and they have certain advantages. For one, they can stay up in the air for longer, an hour rather than say 20 minutes or 25, and they can easily be deployed. You just hold the drone and off it goes into the air and can land on its own. And basically, you can have it survey or map based on software on the computer. So you would send the drone up, define the area you wanted the drone to cover, and the drone would just lap up and down, overlapping itself at least 60–70% to produce some very high quality images and a whole load of data. Whilst I was excited about going in the drone, I'm just doing my own head for a second. Whilst I was excited about going in the drone direction for photography and video, it became very clear that the bigger market was surveying and inspections and mapping. And that's where I intend my business to go in the future. I was speaking to a colleague of mine, Matt Williams, with Aerial Motion Pictures. I trained with them, and he informed me that for the Bond film Spectre, he and his team had the contract to do all the aerial filming. So certainly, when I'm watching television these days, you can almost count the aerial shots. You can say aerial shot, aerial, and it happens an awful lot because of the joy that it brings to a program. Because it's a new start, you know, that takes a little while to get up and running, but there's no doubt at all, even with just 2 or 3 days at the very most of regular filming work by drone, whether it's photography or filming, there's an opportunity to earn enough to equal a good salary. So, for example, I did some filming for a hotel owner recently in Blackpool, and that lasted about half a day. And for that half a day's work of arriving on site, doing all the paperwork, setting it up, flying the drone, returning to base, and providing the client with the images that he needed, the client was charged £350 for a half-day work. So if you're doing enough of those, then you could create a good income from it and run a good business.
My guess is it would be much more profitable from when you start employing at least one other person besides you.
Yes.
From that point on, I guess it will become much more profitable, because by yourself, it's I guess you can live off it, but it's not great.
It's not a secure business.
It's not secure.
No, it's not a secure.